everybody, welcome to our first Facebook Live series. My name's Yasmin and I've been in my career for a few years now, and I thought it would be helpful for millennials like me to get the opportunity to ask questions all related around work, work-life balance, all sorts of things to executive coach Neela Betteridge. Today we will be talking about bridging the generation gap. How I got these questions were I asked a whole bunch of millennials, my millennial friends, millennial colleagues. We reached out to our millennial database. Some of you may know that we have our millennial breakfasts twice a year, and I reached out to those people as well, and they all came back with fascinating questions, and I thought today would be a great opportunity to ask Neela about them. So now I'm going to hand you over to Neela to introduce herself.
Thank you, Yasmin. Well, my name is Neela Betteridge. Some of you may know me, some of you won't. I'm an executive coach, and I've been working as an executive coach for the last 15 years or so. I work with individuals and also teams right across the world, across all sorts of sectors of industry. And the area of young professionals is one that I've increasingly been involved in over the last 24-month period, partly through my work with corporations, and actually young professionals actually approaching me. This generation is called many things. They're generally the age group between 25 to 35 years old. Some of you may understand them as millennials. I prefer to use the terminology of young professionals. Really looking forward to this Facebook Live series. It's a number of sessions that we're holding all the way through to March, and looking forward to the questions that Yasmin has for me.
Great. Now, just before we get stuck into questions, I just wanted to say that this can be as interactive as you like, so feel free to send through your questions, etc., and we'll make sure we can answer as much as we can from them. So the first question that I have, Neela, is how would I deal with the older generation being stuck in their ways and not being able to adapt? Now, in our generation, it's something that we find quite difficult, considering there's a huge, you could say, divide. How would you say, what are your tips for this?
Thank you. I think that's a really great question, Yasmin. I think that dealing with anything like this is predicated on trust and relationship, like anything in life. And yes, it is for the older generation to actually show leadership and enable trust and relationship, but it is also on your responsibilities as that generation to develop those relationships, because I think sometimes it is difficult to bridge the generation gap without that relationship. There is a lot of fear on both sides. There is fear of being held back from your perspective, and there is also sometimes fear of change and the disruption that maybe that older generation sees as being presented by young professionals, and lack of respect. So I think there's a place, first of all, of how do I develop this relationship with that person or people or group community so that I'm actually able to push my ideas so that they actually hear it. I think, like any idea, it needs to be able to stand its ground. But I think at the moment there is a slight situation where people are not hearing what it is that's on offer.
That's very helpful. So when you say trust, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to this word relationship again. As I understand it from working around the world with many different cultures, with people who are managing young professionals, actually, one of the things that I get told, and that I am generalizing here, is actually this generation tends to use social media a lot to communicate. And so the personal communication can be lacking. And of course, we build trust through personal communication. And your generation are very, very used to working and dealing and communicating with each other using social media and using other media rather than like we're doing now, this face-to-face over a coffee, whatever it may be. And I would say to you, actually, focus on how you can make those personal relationships stronger by the one-to-one interaction, as well as all the other stuff that you do, because that really builds the well of trust. And also really make sure that if you promise something, if you're accountable for something, you take full responsibility for it. You make it happen. Because actually, who do we trust? The people that we give things to that we know really, really deliver to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how trust is built up. And in my experience, that the more that happens, the more the delivery happens, the more the communication happens, the deeper the trust. And the deeper the trust, the more the other will relinquish whatever it is that they need to relinquish to the young professional, if that's the case. And actually, you may well indeed find it's an amazing platform to get your new ideas heard. Because actually, you build a reputation as somebody who creates relationship, deals with conflict, is able to communicate well, and always delivers and takes responsibility, because sometimes we can't deliver everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are real things that happen, but actually taking full responsibility for that and actually finding a way around it is a really important part of this. And I think that's what builds trust with people.
That's very helpful.
It's like having a personal relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar. So when we go into the workplace, we don't kind of park that hat outside the front door and walk into work.
Yeah. So you don't think that people should be intimidated by, you know, do you think that it should be okay to kind of get close to somebody and start to, you know, just be...
I think so. I think actually it's an interesting comment that you made there. Actually, it's a really interesting comment. It's all about appropriateness and respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mean in a sort of cloying, over the top kind of way. I mean about there is just in the way that you would speak to anybody, being appropriate and respectful, but developing the relationship with the person. I think that's a very important part, and being able to communicate appropriately.
Yeah. Very helpful. Thank you. So the next question, which actually leads quite nicely, what form of communication do you think is best? Because us as millennials, we love to use, you know, anything snappy, anything quick, anything, you know, emails, and we're not so forward with, you know, being able to prefer to speak over the phone or things like that. We always kind of want it kind of social media orientated, if you like. So what would your tips be on that? And how do you think we can, you know, bridge that gap, if you like?
I would always say to you a combination. So say for instance, I mean, work presents a whole different challenge, I think. I think if you want something done, you need to build into your repertoire being able to send an agenda to the person, make a meeting, sit opposite somebody and discuss what is at stake here, how you manage your promises, what you've agreed to do. So you have that conversation one-to-one. You then follow that up by email, for instance, and you maybe summarise the points of the meeting. Then actually, if you're WhatsApping in between or whatever it may be, it may be very appropriate, because you may need to do quick and snappy sort of updates as to what's going on, and actually getting updates from the other, and you know, making sure the project actually moves along. But there is still scope for some of the old-fashioned stuff around project management, around one-to-one, what have we promised, around action status, as well as the social media stuff. And I think that's where perhaps, you know, on one side it may be going too far, on the other side of completely the sort of social media perspective, that's the other extreme of it. So I think there's a place in between.
So finding balance.
Finding balance, exactly.
Okay, great, that's very helpful. The next question I have is, I want to be taken seriously in the workplace. From your perspective, how can I do this?
Yeah, really great question. I think when you've come into the workplace, when you first start in the workplace, there is a point where you realise you're the bottom of the pack.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's really tough when you come out of university. You've probably come out and you've done very, very well, and there's an expectation that you almost come in and be the managing director immediately, and you find actually you're doing the photocopying. And I remember that moment myself, you know, and it's quite disheartening. But I think the way that you build that, and your gravitas and your presence, is through really taking seriously all the tasks that you're given. There is no shortcut to leadership. And actually, the leaders that I've met who are really great at their jobs have often started right from the bottom. They've done every single job. They know exactly what it takes, and then they go on. And they've learnt to be skillful about the stuff that they do, and they understand what it's like to be doing that job or that job or that job. They also manage their promises very well. They tend to be the kind of people, when they say they're going to do something, they do it. They report back to people. They build networks in the organisation well. So, they not only within the organisation they build the networks, but also outside the organisation. They gain a reputation, much as you have, Yasmin, where people tell me, Yasmin's doing a great job, she's really great on the phone, she's very she anticipates things, etc. That's how you build a reputation. You build a reputation as somebody who gets things done, is serious about what they do, is committed to what they do. And then it's linked to that trust thing that we talked about earlier. That kind of starts building on itself. And that's how you build gravitas. That's how you build presence. And, you have a long career. Your career will last 30, maybe even 40 years. And so it's a long journey.
Yeah.
It's a very long journey. And you think you've learnt it all, and then there is some more to learn.
Yeah.
So that's how you build.
Yeah.
Trust, gravitas, presence, responsibility, and enable yourself to really go far. There's one other point, and I think this specifically might be a young professional thing, but can actually apply to women particularly. Ask for what you want. Yeah? Lean in. Do not be fearful. Do it with respect. Do it with care. Be prepared to be knocked back, but ask. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
And also be prepared to go out there and make the opportunities. If you get given a certain sort of job, be constantly looking for different opportunities, how to build it, how to grow it. Come back, be proactive.
Yeah.
That's what really builds it.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
I've got another question, which may be slightly off topic, but it's something that we kind of not suffer with, but we have an issue with quite a lot, and that's fear of failure.
Yes,
I know
question.
I get it a lot, and it's just it's so true what you say about just leaving from university thinking we've got it all planned out, and then you kind of get to a job, and you're just like, oh my god, this is not what I signed up for, and then we kind of we want to succeed, we want to push ourselves, but we're so anxious, we're so nervous about it all, and then it's just like a massive voice in our head talking to us about so what would you say to that? The question around fear of failure.
This is such an important question, and I see this everywhere in your generation. And I think it's because us as parents, my generation as parents and above, we have taken too much responsibility, I think, and I'm going to generalise here, and oiled the way too much. So my generation, we didn't have everything oiled for us, and we did fail, and we did fall flat on our faces, and our mothers didn't turn up at school and made it all better, and we really, really screwed up. And that is how you learn how to deal with life. And that is how you deal with and you get resilient. I think what we need to build, and us as leaders have to enable young professionals to do, is to actually, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail, fall flat on your face, pick yourself up, brush yourself down and go, ouch, that really hurt. But I'm going to get up, and I'm not going to say, oh gosh, I failed for the rest of my life. But I've actually just screwed up just that time. And that's fine. And I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to try again. And I'm going to maybe try something different. And I see so many young professionals who really get knocked back on this. And so what happens is they won't put themselves forward because they actually are so afraid of failing. So that means that you're not pushing yourself beyond your boundary. How can you become this amazing leader if you don't push yourself beyond your boundary? So very similar to what we're doing today. This is, pushing yourself outside your boundary. And and I can just share this with all the people out there. You know, Yasmin was quite nervous about doing this, but I said to her, go for it, do it, because this will build the muscle of resilience, and you don't need to be perfect, and that's how you learn.
Thank you.
So
that's
thank
you.
An important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one I have is I always ensure that I give senior people in my organisation the respect that they deserve, but how do I gain it back?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like in our generation, because we're younger, we kind of have this, and that's why, you know, we don't like to be called millennials as such, because there's such a strong stereotype coming with that, that we're lazy, we're not proactive, we want things instantly, we want and it's just like, it's not necessarily true. That's why we kind of prefer to be called young, young professionals. But in your perspective, how can I do just gain respect back from the older generation?
Well, I think respect is earned. Yeah, I would say there is a responsibility of that older generation to actually be respectful. Yeah, there is no excuse for being rude and disrespectful, but unfortunately every generation has that within it. So there is always that element within any generation that is not respectful. I think if you continue to do what we've been talking about around trust, around accountability, around really, really going for it, you will build that respect. But also, you know, around that piece where I talked about, welcome. Welcome to the person who's just joined us. Around that piece that I was talking around, asking for what you want. Yeah. If you feel that somebody is not dealing with you respectfully, do not be fearful about actually saying to them, I really respect you. I understand you're under a lot of pressure, but I don't know whether you realise how it makes me feel when you speak to me like that.
That's something we find very difficult to do, because we get quite intimidated.
And you shouldn't, because when you hear me say that, you take full ownership of how it makes you feel. You're not actually saying to them, you are doing this to me.
The wording.
It's the wording, and say it with a lightness and a care that actually means that the person knows that a line has been crossed. And I think in your career you will find often that the line is crossed, and you will need to be able to do that.
Yeah. That's very helpful. Okay, perfect. So I think that's all the questions for today. But just to finalise, just to finish off, just your top tip of the week, Nina, that would be great if you can just give that. So snappy top tip.
In terms of bridging the gap, make sure you really try and find the common ground with the person, the team and the community in which you are dealing with, and really build the trust.
Perfect. And also maybe a top book that you could recommend for us to read?
Yes, well, I think a really great book, which I'd like to recommend, which I've just read, is Simon Sinek's Why, because it talks about purpose, and, you know, we are all needing to know our purpose in life, and I think this is a fantastic book. Have a read.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for all of you who tuned in today. Don't forget to like our Facebook page. Our next event is on the 25th of January, where we are going to be discussing work-life balance. So it's going to be a great topic. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you enjoyed this first Facebook